I'm Vinnie Politan. The subject of my investigation is the Bahamian love triangle murder plot. Former beauty queen Lindsay Shiver married her rich college sweetheart, Robert Shiver, but is accused of plotting with her Bahamian lover to murder him. Here's the story. From the outside, everything seemed amazing. Former beauty queen and cheerleader Lindsay Shiver married her college sweetheart, Robert Shiver. He was a football player at Auburn and came from a family with lots of wealth. Life was good. The good-looking young couple had 3 boys and lived in a $2.5 million home in Thomasville, Georgia. They flew on his family's private jet and had a vacation home in the Bahamas. And that's where this story turns bad. Lindsay allegedly had an affair with a younger man who lived on the islands and worked at Grabber's Bar. Robert found out about it and filed for divorce. Things got nasty, and that's where this story turns really bad. Lindsay, along with her Bahamian boyfriend, are accused of soliciting a hitman to kill Robert. Lindsay is now locked up getting ready for her upcoming trial in the love triangle murder plot in Paradise. There have been a lot of questions about this since the beginning, like how do you end up there? You think about the background of Lindsay Shiver and the life she was living with Robert, and I get it, right? Divorce happens, but you're living a very nice life in this beautiful, sprawling mansion, private jets down to the Bahamas to stay in your place down there, and now accused of murdering or attempting to murder her husband with this conspiracy with 2 Bahamians. Now, I want you to take a look at some video here because this was very significant. This was a big moment. This is when Lindsay Shiver was brought back to prison pre-trial. She had been out on bond, had actually come back to the United States, but apparently had violated the conditions of her release and is now locked up waiting for the trial. And behind her is her Bahamian lover, co-defendant in all of this, going back to prison in the Bahamas. Now, my understanding is not the best place in the world to be, obviously. No prison is. But that brings us to our first question in our investigation. What is it like in a Bahamian prison? Right? What is the conditions, the day-to-day? How about being a foreigner in a prison in another country? What is all that like? What did life be like for her behind bars, coming from where she came from and how she was living her life? Joining me to help us figure all this out, the news director of WTVY in Dothan, Alabama, Ken Curtis is with us, and director and founder of Wall Street Prison Consultants, and the author of the new books, Crimes That Never Happened and Prison Politics 101. Larry Levine is with us. Great to have you both here. Ken, let me start with you. The family and Lindsay Shiver as well. Have they spoken publicly about conditions? Because she had spent some time there previously. Have they talked about what it's been like in there for her?
Vinny, they haven't. Actually, the family has spoken not at all about this. They've not talked about it. The only comment that we've heard publicly from the family was not long after Lindsay's arrest, more than a year ago, when her grandfather, who has since died, talked about how they were surprised and disappointed by what they heard. Otherwise, the family has been pretty much out of sight, pretty much mum. It's a large family, but those closest to her, Lindsay Shiver, Vinny, they haven't spoken publicly about this.
Wow. Larry, I've been doing some research about this prison, and it was first in the news with Sam Bankman-Fried had spent a short amount of time there. And that time there was a lot of reporting about the conditions inside, talking about rats and talking about the food not being great, about overcrowding. What do you know about this prison, and what's your take on what life is like in a Bahamian prison?
Well, if you like going to the bathroom and doing your bodily functions in a bucket, you'll have a great time there. There's no sanitation. There's no health care. It's lousy food. There is rat. there is rodents, and there's like 1,000 people in this place that have been waiting for trial. Well, out of the 1,000 people, there's like 700 people that have been there for several years. I mean, 1 out of every 200 people in the Bahamas is in custody. So it's overcrowded. I mean, she was a special kind of stupid if she was out on bond in the United States and she violated. But, if you compare it to the U.S. prisons, I was talking to some people in Marianna, Florida at the Women's Federal Camp today, and there's mold on the walls. There's mold in the showers. So I don't want to say it's as bad as I don't want to say that, it's like the United States, but this place is really bad. And there's a good chance that she may contract a disease while she's there. And they have really poor health care. I venture to say she's going to lose a lot of weight. She ain't going to look like a beauty queen or a cheerleader anymore. And she's going to be all tore up. You're going to see a significant impact on her.
Ken, she spent some time there. She got out, and then there were some incidents, some trouble that she ran into with another man, and that's what ended up, I guess, getting her back into the prison for violating whatever conditions she had. What type of life was she living before being put back into the prison when she was out on bond?
Well, she was released on bond, as you mentioned, Vinny, and she came back and she was kind of free to roam about town. I think last time I visited with you, we talked about we had Lindsay sightings around. The incident you're talking about was a domestic incident. Her alleged boyfriend arrested, charged with some type of domestic violence and all of this. He has yet to come to trial. But that's not exactly how Lindsay wound back up in that Bahamian prison. After that happened, again, that did not put her back. She began talking about the case and making statements. And I think that's her biggest problem. What put her back in there, as Larry talked about, the conditions down there, given her lavish lifestyle in Alabama and Georgia. You got to think that's especially tough on her being in that prison down in the Bahamas.
Larry, how about that? If you look at the house she was living in when she was living with Robert, I mean, at the time, like $2.5 million is probably worth a lot more now. Sprawling home, private jets to the Bahamas, anything and everything that you need. The Escalade, living a great, great life. Now, obviously, there was a fallout with her husband. I get it. But how does someone coming from all of that adapt to a completely different life behind bars?
She's really not adapted. She's in denial. Imagine living in a U.S. prison. Let's take someplace Luigi or Puff Daddy's living at MDC in New York. I've said before, it's like living in your bathroom forever with no cell phone, no computer. Let's say that she's living in a cell that's slightly bigger than a shower. She's got no mobility. They're bringing food to her. And her only outtake is like maybe going to court. That's all she really has, her lawyer coming to visit her. And she potentially could sit there for several years. I think they're going to dope this woman up on psych meds like there's no tomorrow. And if she's lucky, I'm saying lucky, maybe they'll move her back to the United States. She could get her bond reinstated. But people, they do some crazy stuff when they're out on bond. They don't realize technically they're still in custody and they could be grabbed back at any time. And I mean, we don't know this. Maybe she's sitting in there with a cellmate, it's very possible, who has diseases of their own. Maybe she's being subjected to violence. I don't think she's going to make it through, to be honest with you. They ought to put her on suicide watch because I think she may be destined for early checkout at her own, be at her own hand.
That's scary. The other part of this, Larry, is that she's from the United States. She's in a foreign country. Is that a plus? Is that a minus if you are from another country and you're in prison, whether it's a foreigner in the United States or someone from the United States in a foreign land?
Okay, well, she's lucky because she's got the embassy or the U.S. consular who can come and visit her, can kind of act as a go-between between her lawyer, and the prison administration. So people are going to look at her. Well, look at this little girl from the U.S. She's privileged. And because of that, they're going to look down on her. They may be trying to extort her or something. So on one hand, she's got a benefit, but on the other hand, she's not popular with the other inmates, and she's going to have to watch her back every minute that she's there. So I don't believe it's really a benefit for her. Everybody knows who she is. If you take the other, I don't know, 900,000 plus inmates that are in there, nobody knows who they are. Nobody knows what they're in there for. You can bet that all those inmates in there know they're having family members come and visit them. Family members who can watch, hell, they could watch court TV, they could watch international television, and they could tell her, do you know who's in there with you? So I think she's going to have a rough ride. You know, Vinny, you're real popular with the inmates here in the United States. Many of them told me they watch court TV and they love you. No joke.
Well, that's good to know, Larry. That's good to know, just in case, right? Ken, she's facing real time here. I mean, this is pre-trial, but this could be her life for many, many years.
Oh, this could be the rest of her life. In touching on what Larry talked about just a moment ago, mentioning her family, I wonder what kind of relationship she now has with the family. They stood by her at the beginning of this. They helped her get out. They brought her here. She got back in trouble again. She went back to the Bahamian jail. I just wonder what kind of relationship she has with the family. Now, Vinny, I've said all along, I would not be surprised, and certainly I can't second guess the justice system, but I wonder all along if this eventually will result in some type of drop charges, some kind of plea agreement. I wonder if Robert Shiver really wants his perhaps soon to be former wife to be in a Bahamian prison with the couple sharing 3 children. What do you tell the children? I wonder at the end of the day, if something, and I'd love to hear Larry weigh in on this, if at the end of the day there's not some type of agreement, but that we certainly haven't seen that happen yet.
I think that's possible. Unfortunately, Larry cannot answer that tonight because we're out of time for this part of the show. But great to see you, Larry Levine.
Next time, Larry.
Absolutely.
Okay,
Ken's going to stay with us. When we come back, more to talk about in this case. Where did the thumb drive come from?
And so I plugged the thumb drive in, and it had all these pictures of my wife on it from about 2 weeks ago when we were out of the country.
JonBenét is God. A 2-night special report.
Exclusive video of the man who claims to be JonBenét Ramsey's killer.
Vinnie Politan investigates. Thursday night, 9/8 Central. Only on Court TV.
Were the pictures taken while you were out of the country, or were they taken while you were here?
They were taken while we were out of the country in the Bahamas, and for spring break a couple of weeks ago. And they just showed up at my office today.
Before the alleged murder plot ever happened in this case, something else really strange happened involving Robert Shiver and his parents. They were delivered this package that had a thumb drive on it. I want you to take a listen because he makes a 911 call. That was a part of it. I want to play more of it for you. When he gets it, because he is concerned because it's kind of strange, the circumstances surrounding it.
Today at work, I had a letter delivered to me, and it was a USB thumb drive. And it didn't have a return to sender address or anything, and so I plugged the thumb drive in, and it had all these pictures of my wife on it from about 2 weeks ago when we were out of the country. And the same thumb drive was delivered to my parents' house about a mile away in an unmarked envelope. And it looks like glancing through that it was almost like a private investigator, but we have spoken with everybody that we know, and they've all confirmed that they don't know what we're talking about.
Okay.
So I don't know if we have like a potential stalker or some lunatic that's in town that has been following my wife around.
Strange, right? A USB drive delivered, and he looks at these pictures of Lindsay, his wife, while they are on vacation down in the Bahamas. But it was delivered to him in the United States. Bizarre. And it brings us to our next question in our investigation. Where did the thumb drive come from? Like who, where, what, why? Baffling. Absolutely baffling to me. Still with us, WTVY News Director Ken Curtis, and joining us, criminal defense attorney, former federal prosecutor Tim Jansen. Tim, what are your thoughts about this thumb drive? Kind of bizarre.
Well, it is bizarre. It kind of reminds me about the French investigator Perot, right? You have a fact here that's not explained. So we know that at least both parties, Robert and Lindsay, were both on the island. So they both had the ability to hire someone to take these photos. We also know whoever delivered the photos had to know where Robert worked and where his parents lived. Now, could Lindsay have been setting up her lover by taking these pictures, sending them to Robert's parents? So if something happened to Robert, it was just former lover, some stalker in the islands. Or could Robert have been taking these photos with an investigator to send a message to her and play coy, like, I know what you're doing. I got people watching you. I know what you're doing. Or it could be a third party, but it's not just a coincidence. There's a reason it was done, and we won't know right now.
Yeah, Ken, I'm looking at this and listening to that, and he's the one making the phone call, right? Robert calls 911 about this after he receives it. What are your thoughts, and have you uncovered anything about this thumb drive?
Nothing about the thumb drive. Immediately, what comes to my thought, Vinny, is 911. It wasn't an emergency phone call. It was a phone call where perhaps you needed to find out or to report the thumb drive, or thought you did. But Tim made a great point. Where did those things come from? And I think if you had the answer to that, and this is a guess, but if you knew the answer to that, then some of the clues that just simply don't fit in this case would come together. You got to remember that up to about the time that happened, up to the time that the murder charges were filed, at least from all outward appearances, this was your all-American family. And we're talking about their family, Robert's family, as well as Lindsay's. They are highly respected, honorable people in this community. For them, though, something fell apart. And as far as that thumb drive, when you find out, if you ever do, where it came from, I think it will really bring the clues together in this case.
So, Tim, do you think this is one of those facts that prosecutors in the Bahamas are looking at? Do you think it will be part of the case when this does go to trial?
I think it could show motive and intent on behalf of Lindsay. If she was carefully trying to orchestrate to get out of this marriage, use this lover from grabbers, try to get him killed, and then try to claim the victim. That way she gets everything, right? I'm being stalked. I've convinced this guy to do this, and I'm not paying anybody. I'm not hiring an undercover FBI agent. Or maybe it's Robert who's got the assets and the money and the location down there to hire a private investigator. We know he hired one later. He admitted that. So what's to say this is all the earmarks of a private investigator doing these photos, sending them in a brown envelope. They're delivered to your office. I've had this happen in my office where I've received photos I've received with no address, and you don't know where it came from, but it was very crucial to a case.
Wait a minute. So are you saying this is sort of a common practice among investigators, that they just sort of drop off packages and, let the chips fall where they may based upon whatever's in that package, the photos?
Well, it depends who's doing it and what's on those photos. People want the information to come out, but they don't want it to be attributed to them. And there's a reason these photos were delivered. There clearly is a reason they were sent to the parents and to Robert. And when you figure out why they were sent there, then we'll figure out who did it.
So Ken, as we get ready for this trial is supposed to happen, I believe in the springtime is when it's all going to happen. How much more of this story don't we know that you think will come out during the course of the trial? And do you think the story behind this thumb drive is part of that?
Well, I think it's certainly part of it. I think exactly what Tim said a moment ago, he's right, point blank on target with that. But as far as the trial, we keep thinking it's going to happen. It's going to happen. But Vinny, 2 and 2 is just not adding up here. I think we're going to see movement in the early part of this year that may give us some clues. The other interesting question is in that trial, what kind of support is Lindsay going to have from her relatives here in Alabama?
Absolutely.
Them being in the courtroom, you say it doesn't make a difference, but and I know when you have people there in your support, it does make a difference. At the end of the day, I think this is a mysterious case. I have covered news for 3 or 4 decades.
At a time, Ken.
I've never seen anything quite like this.
Great to see you, Ken Curtis. Tim's going to stand by. Thank you so much. Up next, did Lindsay really want to have Robert killed? I'm Vinnie Politan. We continue our investigation of the Bahamian love triangle murder plot. Robert and Lindsay Shiver had a big house, 3 beautiful children, and really a life of luxury. But now Lindsay is in a Bahamian prison charged with plotting to murder Robert with her Bahamian lover. Here's the story.
Lindsay and Robert Shiver seemed to be living a fairy tale life together. At Auburn, he was the football star and she was the cheerleader and pageant queen. They got married, started a family, and had 3 wonderful boys. They lived in a sprawling mansion in Thomasville, Georgia, and flew a private jet to their vacation home in the Bahamas. Life was good. Then Robert allegedly caught Lindsay having an affair with a bartender from Grabber's Bar in the Bahamas. He filed for divorce. She filed for divorce, but they continued to live together, and 911 calls were made to police. Then, on July 16th, Lindsay allegedly sent a message with her boyfriend to another man to have Robert killed. Now all 3 are charged in this murder plot in paradise, and everyone is wondering if this former cheerleader and beauty queen will spend decades behind bars in a Bahamian prison.
It's baffling, how you get to this point, from where you were to this point. It's really unreal. And I get it, marriages fall apart all the time. But this is an alleged murder plot. So how was the whole thing uncovered? Take a look. This is from the Daily Mail UK report, and it sort of outlines how things developed here in this case. That same day, Bahamian police stumbled unknowingly into the dispute when they began investigating a break-in in the previous evening at Grabber's, a waterfront bar close to Baker's Bay where Bethel worked nights. Investigators examined his phone because he was one of the last people on site, and while they're looking at Bethel's phone, they stumbled across unrelated messages between Bethel himself and Newbold Jr. And now these are the alleged messages that become the evidence in the case. This bleep rolled up on Lindsay and wouldn't let her on the plane, and he put his hands on her. I'm about to come out of retirement for this bleep, Bethel is alleged to have written to his childhood friend. He is flying into Baker's Bay. She is thinking about letting me kill him, but he has the kids. Wow. Let's take a look at a little more here from the Daily Mail UK report. Cops arrested Shiver on July 21st, examined her iPhone, and discovered she had sent Newbold Jr. several pictures of her husband, Robert Shiver, along with a text stating, "Kill him," it's alleged. Now that's a message to Newbold Jr., not to her boyfriend, not to her lover, but to her lover's friend, who is the alleged hitman that they were soliciting, according to prosecutors. And all this brings us to a real important question, which is probably the question in all of this, which is, did Lindsay really want to have Robert killed? Did kill him really mean kill him? Or was it, I'm angry, oh, kill him, I can't believe what he's doing, just go kill him? Is it a figure of speech, or is it a request? Is it a solicitation? Did she really want to have the father of her 3 children murdered? Joining me, national parenting and family relationship expert, Dr. Sue Kornbluth, and criminal defense attorney and former federal prosecutor, Tim Jansen. Great to have you both here. So Tim, looking at this first in terms of the trial, this becomes a crucial issue, right? Because it's about, because I don't think you're going to be able to dispute the words that were on these messages. It's going to be about what did the words mean.
Right. And I think it's important you put it in context. They're going to show a video of that incident where the police came to the house in Thomasville. And they're going to show that Robert wouldn't let her get on the plane, right? He wasn't going to let her take the kids because he was going on the plane. That's consistent with the statement between the 2 men. Exactly what happened. He wouldn't let her get on the plane. And what else is happening? He was taking his kids. So that corroborates what we saw earlier between the lover and the supposed hitman. Now, you could say, oh, she's just emotional. She just said this and said that. But now then she starts communicating with the alleged hitman. And now she sends a picture of him, because the hitman may not know what he looks like, and sends a picture with the saying, kill him. That's a pretty strong case to show intent and motive.
I want to put this up on the screen. This is from ABC News. Bethel, the lover, got in trouble for this, but spoke with ABC News. And this is what he said. She sends the picture that was just sent to her. When she found out that he was there and the kids were home, that's when she was like, kill him. Whenever she gets into an argument with him and she tells me about it, of course I'm livid, but planning to murder him? No. So what Bethel is saying here, Dr. Sue, is that Lindsay is angry with her husband because he's out. And he's out and he's not with the kids. Oh, kill him. So how do we get to the truth of what these words mean? Is there a way to get inside the mind of Lindsay Shiver?
Well, it's a great question, Vinny, but let's recall that this is in writing, okay? And it's in writing many, many times in these text messages where she is saying to kill her husband. Now, you can blow this off and say, oh, he didn't really mean this. She didn't really mean this. This is just what she says when she gets really angry. However, why are you sending pictures of him then? It doesn't make any sense to me, except that she was very, very serious about having him killed and bumped off. And, you know, she really wasn't thinking of her children during this time. I believe that she did say, I mean, you can correct me if I'm wrong, that time he was with the children, she said, do not kill him at that time. So at that point, she was thinking of her children. But I believe that she wanted him murdered and gone so she could live this other life that she wanted to. This reminds me a lot of the Wendy Adelson case, who I believe she should be in jail too for what happened.
And we shall see if she ever gets charged in the murder of her estranged husband, Professor Dan Markell. But Dr. Sue, how does someone get there? Because we looked at the life that they were living, and I understand bad feelings, but how do you not understand that you live in a house like this, you fly private jets, that if you get divorced and there's a custody, you're going to get shared custody. You may actually get physical custody. You're going to get ample child support. You're going to get alimony. You're not going to be in the poorhouse. How does someone go from that to a potential murder for hire plot?
Well, Vinny, that's not the reality that I'm living every single day with the clients that I work with. So let's not be fooled that just because somebody lives in a beautiful home and is showing to the public that they have this perfect life, that that's what is going to happen in the end, that they're going to have this amicable split and everything's going to be split 50-50 and custody is going to be so easy. In fact, what you do not know is what truly happens behind closed doors. And we do not know what was truly happening between Lindsay and her husband. And it could have been extremely tumultuous. They could have had fights, blowouts, who knows what was going on. And she was terrified that she was going to maybe end up with nothing. This happens every single day in America and all over the world. And because of that, the only way that she was going to end up with what she believed that she deserved was to get rid of her husband and murder him. If he was out of the way, she could have everything that you have been talking about, that you see, that she has been living in for most of her life.
Tim, what's your theory on potential motives here?
Well, she obviously may have been mixed motives because now she's in a romantic relationship with this young Bahamian, telling her, making her feel good. She has 3 young children. There was animus relationship between her and her husband. She realized that this bartender is not going to give her the life that she wants. How can I get everything I want? I want the money, I want the plane, I want my kids, and I want my lover. Well, if Robert is no longer around, then I get everything. She acts emotional at times. Some of the things she says, I mean, it was so crazy that she thought that Robert was going to let her get on the plane with her kids to go see her lover after he caught her having an affair. That's just not real. So she's living in a paranoid state that she thought she could get away with whatever she could. And it's terrible that, you know, Vinny, every time I go to my golf club, I go by that house. The golf club I belong to is right next to Robert's house. And I actually see Robert on the golf course sometimes. So it's far away, but it's not really far away. It's here. And it's sad. It's sad that this couple and these kids have to live this.
Well, there's been a development in Robert's life. He's now dating a reality television star. Still to come are Robert Shiver and his new girlfriend, SavannahChrisley, a good match.
This week,
join us each morning to get trial ready for the day's proceedings. Plus, deeper dives into true crime stories with our daily spotlight.
opening statements with Julie Grant. Weekday mornings at 8/7 Central on Court TV.
I'm Vinnie Politan. Welcome to Closing Arguments.
What's happening here?
It's unreal. Let me show you exactly what happened.
Closing Arguments with Vinnie Politan, tonight at 8/7 Central, only on Court TV.
So what's going on? Y'all are separated, or what's the deal?
We have filed for divorce.
Okay.
Living in the same house. It's hell on earth, as you can imagine. We have travel plans to leave, and he's insisting that I don't go.
I'm taking my kids, my 3 boys, to the Bahamas this morning.
Our kids.
Our kids. Yesterday, she sent a message saying that she's going to change her plans and now get on the airplane with me and the kids to go to the Bahamas.
That I own too,
And
by
when
the
we
way.
land, she's going to go to her boyfriend.
Elsewhere.
And me and the kids are going to her house. And I told her I'm not supporting that. And you're not getting on the airplane. That can mess with the kids' heads. And it's just something we're not going to do.
One of the 911 calls, that's Lindsay and Robert arguing. This is July 16th of 2023, just before this alleged murder for hire plot is hatched, or the text messages are exchanged, the messages are exchanged. That's July of 2023. Flash forward a couple months after Lindsay's been arrested, Robert starts dating reality show star SavannahChrisley of the Chrisleys. And we have a photo I want to show you. This is from New Year's. This is brand new. So they've been together more than a year now. This is a New Year's picture. I don't know if they're in the Bahamas right there. I don't know what body of water they're in, but that's Savannah and Robert together. Now, for those of you who don't know SavannahChrisley, her mother and father are in prison, federal prison. They had a reality show. It was really popular, very successful, had a long run, but then the law caught up with the parents. I believe it involved tax evasion, I believe, but I'm not 100% sure on the charges. But her parents are in prison. So you've got Robert with his issues, you've got Savannah with her parents and their issues, and now they are together. Which brings me to the next question in our investigation. And it's about them. Are Robert and Savannah a good match? Is that a positive with all of their things that they're dealing with? Him with his soon-to-be ex-wife, her with her parents. Still with me, relationship expert Dr. Sue Kornbluth and attorney Tim Jansen. Wow, this is interesting to say the least. Let me start with you, Tim, because you're down there where the Shivers are, where they lived and everything. How do you think Savannah will be welcomed by the community and by the society down there? Because the Shivers, very high end. What are your thoughts there on how all that would play out?
Do you remember the movie My Cousin Vinny?
Yes.
And Marissa Tomei showed up in her leather outfit, looked at him, Joe Pesci, and says, "Do you blend?" She does not blend in Thomasville. She's been seen in a restaurant in Thomasville. She stands out. Everybody knows who she is. She really doesn't fit in with the Thomasville culture. It's really confusing for these children. Now they're going to thrust upon, they don't know where their mom is. Now they got a new young woman here, and her parents are in prison for alleged tax evasion. Everything in that blender sounds like a bad match. But you never know. It may work out perfectly.
Let me tell you, if it becomes a reality show, I'm watching it. Now, Robert joined Savannah for an episode of her podcast, Unlocked, and discussed meeting Savannah's mother in prison. Here's a part of the promotional clip that Savannah just posted before the program on Instagram.
Have you met Mom and Dad?
I have met your mother one time. Incredible human being. Me and Julie, we get along great.
For me, you're not seeing the best version of my mother.
Right.
So that was really difficult for me. I don't think you've ever thought, oh, I'm going to go see my girlfriend's mom in prison, meet her for the first time. Not the image anyone had ever imagined. What was going through your mind?
I'm going into this open. This is somebody that you love. This is somebody that everybody in the car loves. Went in with an open mind, and it didn't disappoint, and had a great time with her. I think she laughed a ton.
Robert's throwing around the love word there. I'm cheering for him myself, but let me ask you, Dr. Sue, what are your thoughts here? Are Robert and Savannah a good match?
Vinny, come on. To me, this is trauma finding trauma. And this is what we call a trauma bond in what I do on a daily basis. It's two people that have been through actually some kind of similar trauma here, and they find each other and they feed off of each other. That's my opinion on this. I don't know if it's going to last or it's going to go up in flames. I'm probably thinking it's going to go up in flames, but what?
Why? Why do you think it's going to go up in flames? They seem so happy on the podcast and the photos. It's been 15 months, you know?
I'm sorry to burst your bubble, Vinny, but let's talk again in about 6 to 10 months and see if this is still, happily ever after. Because I think when two people come from this kind of background, they are bonding over what has happened, and they're rescuing each other from the trauma that they have both been through. And that is never, never a good, healthy attachment to one another. It's called a trauma bond for a reason. But what makes me the saddest here, Vinny?
Well, you're going to talk about the kids, right? The children?
Of course I am. That's exactly what I'm going to. Just like Tim said. The saddest part of this is the children. Where are the children in all of this? That both are their parent. One has moved on to a new woman and one's in jail right now. So to me, it says, where are the kids in all of this? Who is first here and who needs to get their needs met right now? And it seems like it's Robert and Lindsay and not these children. And I've seen this too many times. And in the end, it is always the children that are hurt the most because they're victims.
Let me ask you this, though.
What has happened?
If they do stay together past those 6 months,
yeah.
When do they reach a point where you'll be comfortable and believe that, okay, this is working? Like, how long does it take in a trauma-based relationship like this for you to be? How much runway do they need before they can take off?
Yeah, Vinny, I'd say about 2 years.
Okay.
Not 6 months. Let's see what happens in 2 years. I'm glad you're rooting for them. But
I absolutely am. She got a tough deal. She got a tough deal where mom and dad are gone. You don't want that to happen. But Tim, to me, it speaks volumes that he went to go meet the parents. I mean, it's rare. It's tough enough to meet the parents, but first you got to go through security.
Yeah, you got to pass a background check. You can't go be a convicted felon and go visit someone. So that's a good sign. That photo that you showed in the water, I guarantee you that's not Thomasville, Georgia.
Yeah.
So I assume that's probably the island somewhere.
Yeah. It's a beautiful picture. They look so happy. I'm happy for them.
How did she find him? Is this one of those that finds like Ted Bundy got married?
Next episode. Yeah, next episode. Big thank you to Tim Jansen and Dr. Sue Kornbluth. Appreciate it. All right, people get divorced, folks. It happens. And when you're rich with children, it gets a little more complicated. Child support, custody, alimony. But inevitably, millions of people figure it out to a certain extent. It's not unusual. And that's why this whole case to me is baffling. In a divorce, Lindsay and the children would have been taken care of. Custody would have been shared to some extent. They'd both have access. Probably would live with mom. And no one was going to go to the poorhouse. There was no reason for a murder plot. None. But that doesn't mean she didn't do it. I'm Vinnie Politan. We'll keep digging for answers as the investigation continues.